All right, y'all. It's Criscoe Fontaine, aka Coach Criscoe. I got a simple video today. So I came across this article that I saw on Hoops Hype, 20 greatest shooting guards ever. So I'm gonna go through the list, but I'm intrigued by two. Now we all know the top two greatest shooting guards of all time. There's no debate. It's Michael, it's Kobe. But then after that, it gets a little shaky. Now, within the last 10 years or so, I would say, it's been D Wade, 3-time champion. I mean, he just has a resume, right? And just his game puts him at third. But I don't know. I think there's somebody's on his heels right now. So I just want to go through this list and see where they put everybody and, see if I agree. But I want to harp on two after we go through this list. So, I mean, of course, Michael's one. He has all the accolades. We don't have to go through it. We already know. Kobe's two. And if anybody knows me, they know that Kobe's my favorite of all time. So, but I'm realistic to know that Michael's one. I can't, I'm realistic to know that. So, Kobe's two, D Wade's three. Okay, let's just go through his accolades real quick. 3-time champion, 1-time Finals MVP, 8-time All NBA selections, 13 All-Stars. 3 all defensive second team selections, and one gold medal. I think it's 2, right? Was he not on the 12 team? No. So they have AI 4, and I know it's always like, okay, what is AI? Is he a point guard? He's a 2. He's a 2. So AI at 4th. Okay, 1 MVP, 7 All NBA selections. 11 All-Star. He ranks 14th in steals, 28th in scoring, 53rd in assists for his career. Okay. But this is the guy right here that I have in question. James Harden. Now, I'm not the biggest James Harden fan. I think his game has historically been predicated on fouls, getting to the free throw line. But I really can't, at this stage of his career, I can't deny not just the impact that he has had on the game, but just what he's been able to do with his skill set. So this is the guy that I'm thinking, is he 4th or maybe even 3rd? I mean, the only thing that he's really missing is a championship, right? Excuse me. All right, so look at his top accolades. So he has 1 MVP. He's a 6-time All-NBA first team, 10 All-Stars, 1 Sixth Man of the Year award when he was at OKC. He has an Olympic gold and a World Cup gold medal. He ranks 14th in assists. He's 20th in scoring. He's 37th in steals. You wouldn't think that. 187 rebounds and blah, blah, blah. Let me roll back up here to AI. So AI is 31st. I mean, not AI. D Wade, 31st in steals. And what was Harden? 37th in steals. So you wouldn't think that those two guys would be that close in steals. You don't think about Harden and think defense. But he's deceptively good at stripping the ball from people. He's not gonna play any on-ball defense. No. Not at all. But when you compare these two guys from a stat standpoint, there's not much of a difference. Now you can almost argue that the teams that D Wade has played on in his career, they're drastically better than the teams that James Harden has played on in his career. And if you swap those two guys, does James Harden have a championship or 2? Let's just put it into perspective. What do you think if you take D Wade off of the Heatles and you put James Harden on the Heatles with Bosh and James, do they still win championships? They went to 4, they won 2. Do they win any of those? Do they get to any of those? What happens? If you take it back a little bit more, if you take Wade off of the Heat team where there's Shaq and there's Antoine Walker and there's Gary Payton, the 06 team, you take him off of that squad and you put a James Harden. I know James Harden wasn't in the league at this time, but if you put James with that squad, does that squad win a championship? I don't know. I kind of think that they might. I kind of think that they might. Offensively, you can't deny James Harden has an impact. He's dynamic offensively, just from what he's able to do, the space he's able to create with the step backs, and whether he's traveling or not. Sometimes yes, most times yes, but he's still able to. He's fouling him right here. It's a nice little foul. the nice little step backs, the space he's able to create. He's deceptively quick. He's strong. He can get to the basket. He can draw fouls. Get to the free throw line. He's kind of inspired a wave of players that are coming up now. You think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, doesn't he kind of play a little bit like James Harden a little bit, just a tad when it comes to creating contact, getting to the free throw line, things of that nature. That's James Harden-esque. Now, he's not a shooter, outside shooter. He's not going to stretch the defense like James Harden. No, of course not. But just, from that standpoint, James is a little bit impactful, influential, dare I say. Let me just run through the rest of this list, and then I want to just pull up their stats and just kind of compare the stats of those two guys. George Gervin is 6th. Clyde Drexler, who was probably before all of these guys, this new wave. Drexler was, Michael, and then Drexler, and then Kobe came and just kind of, get Clyde, get your old ass out the way. It's me. And then, but still, Clyde was still like 3rd at least, right? So it's kind of interesting to see him, go all the way down, even below George Gervin. Okay. Reggie Miller is 8. Ray Allen is 9. Vince Carter is 10. From a talent standpoint, I would have Vince probably higher. Yeah, I'm not mad at that. Earl Pearl is 11. T-Mac is 12. That's the biggest what if right there, because without injuries, T-Mac is probably the one of the most talented people thus far of the 12 that I've listed. Hal Greer, throwing it back. Klay Thompson. Yeah. Sam Jones. Manu Ginobili. Dennis Johnson. Joe Dumars. Bill Sharman. Gail Goodrich. And it was all 20. Okay. But yeah, I wanted to I really wanted to spotlight Dwyane Wade and James Harden. So let's look at their stats real quick. All right, so now I'm not really one to solely compare people based on their stats, because men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Yeah, that's what they say. But stats can also skew a perspective. So take this with a grain of salt. But when you just look at their stats, at this stage of James Harden's career, he's played the same amount of seasons that D Wade played for his career. Now, D Wade has suffered more injuries throughout his career, as opposed to James. But when you just go through just the head-to-head, James Harden has a better head-to-head record against D Wade teams. But the playoffs is what's important. When they met the one time in the finals, the games played is fairly close. James played a little bit more, but the points per game average goes to James. The rebounds goes to James. The assists goes to James. The steals are a deadlock. The blocks are not far off. The field goal percentage goes to D Wade, just because James is more of a volume outside shooter. 3-point percentage, of course, goes to James. Free throw percentage goes to James. So, from an offensive perspective, James Harden checks all the boxes, right? But then when you go to the honors and awards, it's all D Wade. He's a Hall of Famer. James Harden will be one. But those championships, now, to be considered the greatest of your position, I mean, I guess you have to have won at the highest level in some capacity, right? Michael, Kobe, D Wade, And then you get to some of the guys that got there but hasn't won. Like AI, he never won the big one. James Harden thus far has never won the big one, and probably would never win the big one as a number one option at this point in his career. So that's a big I don't want to say strike, but people will look at that and say, well, how can he be better than D Wade and he's never won a championship? I mean, just as a player, he still could be better than D Wade, and just not been on a squad that was good enough to win the championship. Or maybe, just maybe, D Wade played on better teams that had more talent around him. Not to say that James Harden hasn't played on teams with talent around him, but just the amount of talent that D Wade has played with on the teams that he has won championships with. That talent, head and shoulders, is better than the talent that, other than the OKC team, but that team was really young, right? So he kills him on that. But the first team All NBAs go to James. The All NBAs are close. I mean, D Wade has him by one. The defense, of course, nobody's going to mistake James Harden as a lockdown defender. So there's no all defensive selections for James. No, but he does have that MVP, and there was a season where Wade was, in my opinion, the best player in the league. I can't remember if that was that 08, 09? I can't remember. It was one of those years where he could have very well won the MVP. But he did get the finals MVP in 2006 and more All-Star appearances than James. But I mean, just, when you look at, their stats, they're not too far off. And again, like I said, I'm not necessarily comparing them solely off of stats. But I'm thinking, if you roll the basketball out, who wins a one-on-one matchup? James Harden or Dwyane Wade? I don't know that answer. I don't know that answer. If you're asking me who I favor Dwyane Wade, but just what James Harden is capable of doing offensively. And he's slightly bigger, a tad taller, a tad thicker, paws, than D Wade. That, could contribute to, being able to, I don't know, maybe get his shots off a little bit better, but D Wade defensively might give him some fits. So when you look at it in that standpoint, D Wade would probably have an easier time stopping Harden than Harden would have stopping D Wade. But Harden's offense is more dynamic than D Wade's offense. To step back. If he can just step back and shoot threes, and if he's hitting that outside shot consistently, D Wade has a hard time stopping him. But I don't know. I mean, who's to say that James Harden doesn't have another couple years left in his career and he doesn't get a championship under his belt? And if he does get a championship, does that put him at third? I mean, there's no debate. MJ, Kobe, they got one and they got two. You can call them 1A, 1B, whatever. But that third spot, I don't know. I think maybe it's still up for grabs. I mean, I love D Wade, but just from what James Harden is able to do on the basketball court, and I'm able to respect that now because I was never a James Harden fan. Got to give it to him. But I don't know. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Where do you have these guys? If you have them exactly the way Hoops Hype have them, and shout out to Hoops Hype for the article. And who would you take in a one-on-one environment between James Harden and Dwyane Wade? I love them both, but this is just friendly banter. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button on your way out. I appreciate you for watching. See you on the next one.